it's because they still live with their parents. So your mother is like, for as long as you're staying here, you go to church. But for you guys, it was out of your own volition. You decided that you wanted to come to church. And it's really, it's a privilege that I get to spend a few minutes with you. So I want to give a talk. Did we win with the presentation, guys? Are we going to win with the presentation? There's no, okay. So I want to give a talk. It's one of the talks that I give mostly to people who are in corporate. And some of the things that we learn in our 40s, 50s, 30s are things we wish we had learned in our 20s and in our late teens. So I'm hoping that in sharing with you this information, it will assist you, more especially in your careers. And when we are talking about careers, we're covering everything. I know that some of you have aspirations of being in what traditionally we used to call full-time ministry, which means you don't want to work for a corporate, you just want to work for the church, or you want to work for God, however you phrase it. I know that some of you want to build careers in corporate South Africa, and I know that still some of you want to run your own businesses, your own organizations, NGOs, NPOs, want to be in politics. But all those things, it doesn't matter where you will be building your career. All of us as young people will be building a career somewhere. So the fact that it's in the church does not mean it's not a career. The fact that it's in an NGO does not mean it's not a career. The fact that it's not in a corporate setting or you are not with other people, because sometimes as an entrepreneur, you think you're working alone. Actually, nobody works alone. We're all working with someone. Because if you're working alone, where is the money going to come from? It's either coming from your customers, your clients, etc. So everyone works with someone. So every single one of us is building a career. Does that make sense? It doesn't sound very spiritual, eh? I know, especially when the worship was so powerful, I was like, this is the right sermon for this powerful worship. But to link it, let us go to Proverbs chapter 3, verse 5 to 6. Thank you for praying with me the other time when my dad was not well. And again, I apologize that I couldn't make it. He's much better. And thank you. I think that Friday he came out of the hospital, I think on the Monday or so. Proverbs chapter 3, verse 5 to 6. It says, trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not on your own understanding. It says, in all your ways. It doesn't say in your church ways, in your Christian ways, in your spiritual ways. It says in all your ways. So what most of us do with our Christian walk is that there are certain departments that we have surrendered wholly and completely to God. But there are certain departments where we still want to apply ourselves, where we be like, okay, God, I've got this. There are a couple of departments. For example, when it comes to love, most people will go by their feelings, and most people will go by what they think is likely to be couple goals. What about goals? What goals? Is it the right way? Yeah. So most people will look at themselves, let me give an example. If you're a tall girl like me, and a short guy is asking you out, and you really like him, you just think, this is not going to work for couple goals, because we're going to look like this. So some of the decisions that we take, and then sometimes you don't even realize that that's how you think. You only realize after the fact that, you know what, some of the decisions where I should be involving God, I don't involve God. I mean, maybe when we choose our careers, I know during my time, this is how we chose careers. We looked at the skills that an industry looked for the most, the rarest skills, which paid the highest salaries. We were not asking God, oh God, what must I study, engineering or medicine? We were looking for opportunities that were going to ensure that we can build our parents' houses, build ourselves houses, and buy ourselves cars. That's all we were looking for. And those days, there was no issue with the hair. The most expensive hairstyle was relaxer. There was no wig, there was nothing. So we never had dreams of buying expensive hair because we didn't know that it existed. We didn't even do grades when I was growing up. Okay, keep in mind that this is like in 1994, a very long time ago, where some of you were not born, I think. This is me in matric in 1994. So here God is saying to you, so no time ago, 1994. Every time when I think about it, I'm like, oh my God. You know, we were in I must brag a little bit, okay? We were in Zanzibar this and when I was, just because I was at the bar, you must not assume that I was drinking. But I was also selling some drinks at the bar. So I must put this very ask us, so why are you guys here? You're only girls. And then we're trying to explain that it's one of our friends' 40th year. And I had to take out my ID to prove to him that, Joe, we are really 40. It's not a piece of, this is not an imaginary 40 years old. We are really 40 years old. So it's amazing. I mean, that kid, that Bama was like 26. So it's just, every time when I'm sitting with people, when I look at them, I think they're my age. When I realize there's like a 15-year age gap, I realize, Mantsha, you're a fossil, you must accept it, you are old. So here God is saying to you and I, we must not only trust Him with some of the things that are happening in our lives. We must not. So when you are sick in your body and the doctor has no other option, it's very easy to trust God because you don't have any other option. But God is saying to you and I, even when you are healthy, trust God with your health. Even when your potential or your boyfriend, I don't know what you guys do now if you're dating or lajola or whatever the case is. I don't know how it works in your generation. But you know, in our generation, people were in courtships. They were not dating. So I don't know what is happening in your generation. So even when things are going well in your supposed relationship, God is saying, even in that place where you think there is no place for me, trust me, because He's saying that in all your ways, acknowledge Him and He shall direct your path. So that God does not only direct some of our paths, but He's directing all of our paths. So the second, and we'll do 3 verses and then we'll go into the presentation. The second portion of scripture that I want us to read is Psalms 37, verse 22 to 25. It says, for those, Psalms 37, verse 22 to 25, most of you know it. For those blessed by God shall inherit the earth. So we especially for us, we are at a time where young people are, where black people are, they actually want land. They want, and I mean, if you grew up in a shack, or you grew up in a really small house, you understand what the struggle for land is a real struggle among black people. I mean, to the point that some of us, we come from townships where you don't even have the privacy of a bathroom, where you are sharing a toilet with the entire community. So when we are speaking about land, people think it's a political thing that we are discussing. People think, to be honest, it's a basic human need, where you have a place that you call home, where, I mean, especially for those of us who grew up renting, your entire life you grew up renting. Even when people want to come and pay the water for you, you don't know where they are going to go because if the landlord decides otherwise, you don't even know how to tell your suitor that, you know what, just wait a bit, let us organize if my aunt can allow us, and the delegation must come to her house. So the land struggle for black people is a real struggle. And here is God entertaining it. He says to you and I, those who are blessed by God shall inherit the earth, but those cursed by Him shall be cut off. The steps of a good man, and this is what I wanted us to go to. The steps of a good man are ordered by the Lord, and He delights in His way. So you and I, we are good people because we are made righteous by the blood of the Lamb. So the minute that you and I accept Jesus as the Lord and Savior of our lives, that is what makes us good. We are not good because of our actions, because once in a while you will make a mistake, you will fall into sin, but that doesn't change the fact that you are good, because you are not made good by your actions. You are made good by the covenant that you have with Christ. The blood of the Lamb is what makes you righteous. So at all times, regardless of the struggle that you are facing in your life, whether it's sin, whether it's mistakes or whatever, or certain habits in your life that are taking longer than they should to live your life, even in the midst of everything that you're going through, you remain good because your goodness is something that comes from your relationship with Christ, and from the fact that you have agreed that God, yes, you are my Savior and my Lord. So here God says to you and I, because you and I are good, our steps are ordered by the Lord. So which means, even though you made a decision to come here, you are here because your steps are ordered by the Lord. I am here because my steps are ordered by the Lord. You are at vet, if you are still at vet, because your steps are ordered by the Lord. Some people, even though they are at camp, they are in some kind of limbo. You are not sure if you're coming to vet this year, you are still hoping, you may come to vet, you may not come to vet. Even in that state of limbo, your steps are ordered by the Lord. This is a very important piece of information that you need to have as a child of God. Because if you don't know that you are at the right place where you are supposed to be, and you live your life wishing you were somewhere else, you will never be able to apply yourself in an excellent manner if you keep thinking you are at the wrong place. When I was a student at it was designing me. So I could not understand what was going on. Fine, the course was difficult. But the main reason why I struggled as much as I did at WITS with my chemical engineering studies is because every single day at the back of my mind, I knew I'm not supposed to be in engineering. So even the way I was applying myself to my studies, I knew I shouldn't be here. And I was always silently hoping that something will rescue me from this course. So in a way, I engaged in a lot of things that sabotaged my success because deep down, I never thought I'm supposed to be successful in this thing because if I succeed in it, it invalidates the fact that I don't think I'm supposed to be here. So if you are like me, then, and you are thinking you are not supposed to be where you are, I want you to immediately dismiss that thought. Because that thought will rob you from building the best relationships where you are. That thought will rob you from being present where you are because it's difficult to be present in a place that you know you are not supposed to be at. Some of us, our struggle is not because the course is difficult. Our struggle is because we are in this course, but we keep looking at another course with envy, wishing we were at the other course. That is why we cannot apply ourselves fully because a part of us is not here anyway. So when you understand that your steps are ordered by the Lord, you will be present regardless of the circumstances. You will know that I could have been at UCT, I could have been at UKZN, I could have been at Harvard, but I am at VET right now because God ordered my steps here. You could have been at Believers Love World, you could have been at LGTG, you could have been at JTL, but you are at CAF because your steps are ordered by the Lord. So don't be here and wish you were there. Don't be here and ask the others, what were they preaching? Don't be here and ask the others, what were they singing in your church? What did they prophesy? There was no prophecy at my church today. Wherever it is that you are, be wholly and completely present. So I spent some time studying Steve Jobs, the founder of Apple. I can already tell you he's not a nice man. He's not a good role model. And so we study him for different reasons. We're not trying to be like him. He was a really horrible man. He was a horrible wife and a horrible father and a horrible leader. But he was a genius. So we don't study him because of the stuff that he did not do well. We study him because of the things that he did well. And he gave a lecture, I said that I think it was at Cornwall, I don't remember which university it was, but it was at one of the colleges in the States. And in his lecture, he spoke about all the things that he did in his life. And he says now that he works at Apple, and he looks back, he can see how the dots connect. I think it's a very famous lecture, some of you may have heard it. It was at a graduation. And he says he dropped out of class, and he went to study I forgot what it's called, but now when we were growing up, we called it cursive, but that's not what they call it now. You know, styles of writing, calligraphy, am I right? Calligraphy, yes. So he said he took that course, and he says when you look at both Microsoft and when you look at Apple, a lot of the fonts that are there is because of what he studied. But at the time when he was studying it, he could not see where it was taking him to. The reason why I'm bringing this now here, where the Bible says the steps of a righteous man are ordered by the Lord, is because some of the things that you are doing, some of the places where you are at, some of the departments that you are part of, maybe a course that I remember, guys, I studied corrosion. You understand what corrosion is? I could never understand how is corrosion going to fit into my life. I could never understand where am I ever going to apply corrosion in my life. You know, I could have been studying something, market or whatever. I studied corrosion. So when I looked at corrosion at that time, I could not see how it was going to fit in my life. But God knew that one day I had to make an example like this, and I will need a course like corrosion to say to you, even though what you are studying is as useless as corrosion, one day to make a point to a group of young people at first, you will need to have studied corrosion. I could not see how the dots are going to add up, but the steps of a righteous man are ordered by the Lord. Amen. So don't feel bad. And wish you were doing something better. Don't look down on your family and wish you came from a better family. And ask your mama, when other women were slaying and getting husbands that had money, why did you just look like this and not be this father? says our steps are ordered by him, not by us, by him. But Simon Peter, they could have been anywhere that day when Jesus was looking for the sheep. But the reason why they didn't catch anything is because if they had caught something, maybe by the time Jesus came to the river to look for a boat, they would have been at the market selling what they had caught. But because they had caught nothing, they were not at the market. And when Jesus needed a boat, their boat was there and they were also there. So what looked like a failure was actually Christ setting them up for a ministry that was going to change all of our lives. So whatever it is that you're going through, who's dumping who mostly? Is it the boys that are dumping the girls or the girls that are dumping the boys? Who's dumping who's both? Okay. So when people are dumping each other, when people are dumping each other, when you are crying for that person who has left you, you must cry, but at some point you must actually be grateful. Because it means that for you to be at this place where you are dumped, the steps of a righteous man are ordered by the Lord. Really, this man was not supposed to be in your life. That's why he's living. Even if there's a person, I don't know this one from experience now. When a person dumps you and they say, I love you, I want to stay, but I can't. Is someone holding a gun to your head? They can't stay because God will not allow it. And you are sitting there crying for something that God will not allow. The steps of a righteous man are ordered by. So it doesn't matter where you are. If you don't have a hairline, the steps of a righteous man are ordered by God. I know that you guys are young, but at our age you are struggling with them power. The steps of a righteous man are ordered by God. So wherever you are and whatever you are going through, remember you are at the right place, exactly where God wants you to do. The question that you need to ask yourself and what you need to hear from God is, God, why am I here? What do I need to learn? What am I doing here? How must I behave when I'm here? How do I contribute when I'm here? How do I add value when I'm here? This is not looking good for our presentation. And he delights in his way. So God delights in your way, in my way. Though he fall, he shall not be utterly cast down, for the Lord upholds him with his hand. I have been young, and now I am old. Yet I have not seen the righteous forsaken, nor his descendants begging for bread. So, when I was reading this portion of scripture, and I was reminded of the fact that I'm actually speaking to young people who at some point will be looking for work, who at some point will be trying to do business deals, who at some point will be trying to establish themselves as professionals, as people who are contributing to the economy. I realized that at the back of most of our minds, especially those of us who don't come from rich families, is economically am I going to be okay? Especially because you live in a generation where you have seen a lot of graduates not making it. We were fortunate in that in our generation, every graduate was successful. The reason why every graduate was successful is because there were not a lot of graduates. And the reason why there were not a lot of graduates is, number one, the universities had a quota system. So the universities were mostly white than they were black. That's the first thing. Secondly, our schools were not producing matriculants that were ready for varsity. And the biggest issue was the fact that a lot of families could not afford varsity education. So the unintended consequence of free education is the higher number of graduates. Which means the pool that enters the market by the time you guys graduate will be the largest pool that corporate South Africa has ever seen. And if you know economics, what happens when supply increases? Economics students? What happens when supply increases? Thank you. What happens to the price? Have you ever seen when you are trying to bargain with people who are selling the same thing, if they have not discussed about among themselves that we don't drop the price, we can bargain and buy this thing at below cost, because everyone is selling the same thing at the same quality. So all of us, the assumption that corporate has, or that business has, or that government has, is that if you are a vet graduate and you pass, all of you are the same quality. So now vet graduates, it's like a sausage factory. I know it doesn't sound cool. Because one sausage is the same as the next thing, as the next thing, as the next. So the question that you need to ask yourself as a student at VETS is, how do I begin to differentiate myself? How am I a sausage with a different flavor? How do I make sure that when I hit that interview desk, I have something more to bring to the table? There's an additional value other than the fact that I have a VETS degree. We see so many of you on LinkedIn begging for jobs, on Twitter, on the streets, on Facebook. We see it. People with colorful results can't get jobs. And you are sitting here thinking the only thing you need is a degree. You need to think again and ask yourself, how do I ensure that by the time I leave this place, I have everything that I need to secure? Not a job, not an internship that pays me 2.5, which is not enough to live on and to drive anything. Like, even a taxi, you can't even drive a taxi with 2.5. It's not enough money to get you from Soweto to work every day for 20 days. So you need to ask yourself, how do I position myself in such a way that by the time I leave VETS, I can actually demand my price, not take whatever the market is willing to give. Then let's go to John 1. This one I will read it in the Amplified. How many minutes do I have? 14, okay. John 1 from verse 14, I'm reading in the Amplified. And the Word, in brackets it says Christ, became flesh and lived among us. And we actually saw his glory. Glory as belongs to the one and only begotten Son of the Father. The Son who is truly unique, the only one of his kind, who is full of grace and truth, absolutely free of deception. John testified repeatedly about him and has cried out, testifying officially for the record with validity and relevance. This was he of whom I said, he who comes after me has a higher rank than I and has priority over me, for he existed before me. This is the verse that I want us to look at. For out of his fullness, the superabundance of his grace and truth, we have all received, number 1, grace upon grace. In brackets, number 2, spiritual blessing upon spiritual blessing. Number 3, favor upon favor, and gift heaped upon gift. So remember earlier what I said. I said, wherever you are, don't allow yourself to have a feeling that you are supposed to be somewhere else. Know that you are at the right place where God wants you. The second thing that I want you to know is that you have everything you need to succeed where you are now. I want you to go through life thinking, when I get there, I am going to have everything I need to succeed there. I want you to have a conviction in your spirit that I have everything I need to succeed here and now, where I am. Because I have his grace, I have his favor, I have his blessing, I have his gift. It's not something that is coming later. It's something that I have now where I am. So whatever it is that you are studying, if you are looking for work, you are applying, you are trying to sort things out in your family. Some of us, you're not just thinking about yourself and what you're doing at best. You are thinking about your other siblings that don't have money to register. So you are sitting here sorting yourself out, but there are other people who are depending on you to sort them out. So the Bible says to you and I, you have all the favor, all the blessing, all the gift, and all the grace you need to be able to thrive where you are, not later on in life. So that you don't live your life hoping for a better tomorrow without appreciating that you are inside a better today. Now, let's quickly do this. We won't be able to do much of it. So the question that we are answering, and that's what we were trying to do even with the verses that we were going through, is what will it take me for me to get to the next level in my career? And for you as young people, the relevant question that you need to ask yourself is, how do I live my life in such a way that whatever my career is, I reach the top of that career? So that we don't go through life
trying to aim for the middle. So that we don't go through life saying, you know what, it's fine. I don't have to be at the top of my game. If I'm just in the game, it's fine. So we need to have a realization, and we need to have an ambition within us that says, if I am going to be a pastor, I'm not going to be a mediocre pastor. If I'm going to be a musician, I'm not going to be a mediocre musician where for them to invite me to a gig, one zama. Every time it's like, I don't know, space that I wrote. No, you must position yourself so that they headline for you, not so that you headline for them. Whether you are a speaker, whether you are a manager, whether you are whatever it is, an entrepreneur, don't plan on it. As long as you are surviving and you have enough to eat, aim for the top. I think it's Jerome Liberty who says aim for the top, the bottom is overcrowded. So we are not trying to be experts to be at the bottom in our communities. You are not going to struggle as much as you are struggling with the cause so that